take roll.
Commissioner Becerra.
Here.
Commissioner Verino. Here. Commissioner Alderetti. Here. Vice Chair Contreras-Leo. Here. Chair McLaughlin.
Here.
Commissioner Mendoza. Here. Commissioner Nguyen.
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you. Will you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Do you just want to lead us?
Do I have over your heart ready to begin?
Thank you. Okay. Does a member of the public have any public comments on non-agenda items? If you have filled out a card, you have 3 minutes. I have several people here that have signed up for non-agenda items. The first person is Carol Park.
Hello. My name is Carol Park, and I live at 2429 Poinsettia Street in the neighborhood of Park Santiago. I'm here tonight to register my opposition to the 2525 Main Street project. This project is much too large for the adjacent community and the cross-traffic it will create. These are residential streets, not arterials. This 5-story, 500-unit building is proposed at the entrance of a residential neighborhood and is not zoned for apartments. This project would compound the cumulative effect of the 7 to 10 other projects going in within a half mile of the 2525 site. The choke point that will be created on Main Street between La Vida and 17th will force drivers through the only other east-west corridor available, Edgewood, Santa Clara, Santiago, and Lincoln, also known as Park Santiago. Architecturally, this building is out of scale for the residential neighborhood, which abuts it on the south and east side. The homes adjacent to 2525 location are predominantly single-story, early to mid-century with square footage of 1,300 to 1,800 set on small to average-sized lots. I'm not opposed to any development on the site. I think the city of Santa Ana should use this great opportunity to develop these 5.9 acres in a way that adds to the entire community and not hand it away forever to a developer so they can sell it for $270 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Dale Helvig.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Dale Helvig, Park Santiago. I'm here representing the North Santa Ana Preservation Alliance, and as chairman, consists of over 1,200 homes. I'm encouraged lately with the progress that we've been making towards the opposition to 2525. I'm also encouraged to see that there's an agenda item on the Historic Resource Commission administrative actions coming this Thursday. And I believe they're going to come out with a resolution that also opposes 2525 Main Street development. What discourages me, though, is the ability of the applicant to wine and dine people and essentially influence a lot of people by their deep pockets and the ability to influence people that are vulnerable. They need money. Santa Ana needs money, but we don't need the money that much that will let an outside developer come in from Beverly Hills, build his, or essentially get it through the Planning Commission, get it through the City Council, and then dump it on some developer that will then go ahead and develop the property. I'm hoping that the Commission, the Council will see through this facade and be able to do what's best for Santa Ana and oppose this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Angel Bravo.
Hi. Only need interpreter, please.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I'm going to help translate for
Okay,
you.
that's fine, Jaime. Thank you.
No, ok, yo nomás vengo a decir aquí el proyecto de la escuela, que cuando comenzó a agarrar el problema el señor Kent, se solucionaron todos los problemas y pude
Usted
vender
viene,
mi casa.
viene a hablar sobre el proyecto que está en esta noche. Creo que lo vamos a mover a donde está el tiempo para poder comentar, porque esto es para comentar en proyectos que no están en la lista. He has some comments about the modern day, so
Then we'll move it to the modern day comments. Thank you.
cuando se presente el proyecto, entonces ya, cuando lo llamo. Gracias.
Thank you. The last one I have is Lisa Gaines.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for having us speak today. My name is Lisa Gans, and I am a resident of Park Santiago, and I also am here to oppose the development of the 2525 North Main project, as well as the 2700 North Main project. Both of these will have significant impact on the region. One of the main concerns is the cumulative impact of all of the high-density apartments being built or proposed in the area. The apartment lofts near Mother's Market, the Prisma project with 182 units, and the 1110 project with 260 units are just a few that are less than a mile away. Santa Ana is already the most overcrowded, dense city in the country, in the county, and the close proximity of all these projects will create significant negative impact to resources, congestion, traffic, and overpopulation to the region. Other cities in the county have more room for development and are aggressively addressing any housing shortage with thousands of new startups. Social engineers who state the future is in high-density rental units are really only concerned with the cost of development and tax revenue. The size and scope of these two projects do not fit the area. 517 units with 441 parking, just specific to the Sunshine Ordinance report of the 2525 Main project, means the overflow parking in our neighborhoods and more than 1,000 more vehicles in the area. More vehicles mean longer lights, congestion at all intersections, including the I-5 freeway, which is already at a standstill no matter what time of the day. More traffic means more emissions, more noise, more safety issues, especially with the Discovery Cube across the street, and reduced quality of life for existing residents. The developer's proposal to adjust the entrance to the complex and letting Park Santiago neighbors use the amenities don't outweigh the negatives of the development. They state they will create a better Park Santiago. It won't. They say they have listened to our concerns. They haven't. Park Santiago residents do not want this development in any shape or form. The developer states they would not have acquired this site had city staff not identified it as an unlimited density and unlimited height residential site over 3 years ago. I urge the planning department to listen to the neighbors who will be impacted the most and oppose rezoning for any high-density development. I believe an alternate plan to these properties can be found and welcome working with the department to reach a mutually agreed solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. At this time, does anyone else have any public comments they would like to make on non-agenda items? Hearing none, public comments are closed. We'll now go to the consent calendar. Do any of the members have any corrections to the minutes or items that they'd like to discuss or pull at this point in time? Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 9th meeting, but with 2 edits. The first is on page 4. In the list of folks that spoke during the public hearing is Tish Leon, not Tish Leo, in relation to our vice chair. And also on page 4, the words when in close proximity to residential should be removed from the motion. That wasn't part of the motion. Instead, it should say, and parking behind the buildings.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do you have that? Beatrice, do you have any comments?
On page 5, we closed the meeting in memory of Nellie Kaniski. It's Nellie. Kaniski is Kaniski. Thank you. Yes, Nellie is Nellie. Kaniski is Kaniski. Thank you.
Any other corrections to the minutes? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Ken Nguyen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0, unanimous vote. We'll now move to the business calendar. Please be advised that the action of the Planning Commission shall become effective on the day following the first regularly scheduled City Council meeting after a 10-day appeal period, unless, if allowed by Santa Ana Municipal Code, an appeal to the City Council is filed with the Clerk of the Council and a copy is sent to the Planning Department within 10 days of the date of the Commission's actions, or unless set for public hearing by the City Council. An appeal from any decision or requirement of the Planning Commission may be made by any interested party, individual, or group. We will now move on to the business calendar. We have item number 1, fiscal year 2018-2019 capital program. Jason?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. I'm Jason Gabriel with the Public Works Agency, and I'm going to go through our proposed 2018-2019 capital improvement program. In general, a capital improvement program is a fiscal document that looks at all the major capital expenditures for a given fiscal year, and again, in this case, it's for the fiscal year 18-19, starting on July 1st of the coming year. The CIP is part of the budget adoption, and after the Planning Commission meeting, it'll continue on with the budget as approved by the City Council, and once adopted, it will become the budget for our, again, next fiscal year. We look at what we're looking at for next year. About a third of the funds are provided for street improvements. That's a departure from previous years where usually that's about 50% of the funding. But because we have so many traffic safety and mobility projects, that makes up 41% of the overall CIP. That's a bigger program now because of all those types of projects. We're looking at about $40 million for next year, and about 25% of the remaining of the CIP is in utilities, drainage and lighting program, and also in city and facility improvements. Some of the highlights under the street improvement, the state passed Senate Bill 1, SB 1, and under this program, it's the additional gas tax that is providing additional funds for street improvements within the city of Santa Ana. This year we have several projects, Alton, Bristol, rehabs, as well as Maine and rate rehabs are using those SB1 funds. We're looking to do about 17.5 miles, centerline miles of resurfacing next fiscal year. We have 2.5 miles of ongoing widening as part of the Bristol and Warner projects, and then about 8.5 miles of bike lanes of various types. The next category is traffic improvements. One of the highlights here are one number of protected bike lane projects, but one is the Santa Ana Boulevard and Fifth Street protected bike lanes. Those are part of they're in conjunction with the streetcar project. So this will provide protected bike lanes from the Civic Center to the train station along Santa Ana Boulevard and Fifth Street. We're also looking to improve 3 signals as part of the CIP. The next category at about $4 million is public utility and drainage improvements. These are basically improvements to sewer and water infrastructure and facilities, as well as streetlights. We're looking to do about 5,000 linear feet, or about a mile of sewers next year, and about 20,000 linear feet, or about 3.5 miles of water improvements. The next category is city facilities at about $6.5 million. One of the highlights here is the things happening at the Santa Ana Zoo under the park and zoo facilities. The master plan of the zoo is in the process of being is finalized, and then also the Amazon's Edge giant river otter habitat. That's a new project, a new exhibit that will be taking the place of an older exhibit at the zoo. And then looking at some of the programs that we're working on, I mentioned SB1. Between fiscal years 17-18 and the upcoming 18-19, we have about $9.5 million of that additional gas tax money to apply to our local streets. The current year we have 4 projects, and next year we'll have 9 projects. That was just, the 9 projects were just approved by City Council last week. Another program, fiber optics. We're looking at a master plan for data and a fiber optic system citywide that's just starting right now. We haven't identified what the total program is going to be, but we have hired a consultant who's going to assist in that effort. The streetlight LED conversion, we purchased, or we're in the process of purchasing from Southern California Edison all of the streetlights, or a major portion of the streetlights within the city, so that they can be under local control, and also we're going to convert them all to LED lights, which basically the cost to finance the purchase is seen from the reduction in cost from standard light bulbs to the LEDs. So it's a way for us to provide better service to the community through those streetlights. That is also going to be tied to the fiber optic initiative, so that we can look at ways of leveraging technology on the streetlights as well. The ATP program is active transportation. It's all the bike lanes, all the safety projects that we're doing to make it safer for pedestrians and bicycles. It's about $11 million we're working on, and we're also looking at next year applying for an additional $20 million that we have not been approved for yet. We're working on our asset management system to really digitize that, bring it into the current century, the current millennium, so that we have a better coordination of all our projects. We're looking at doing a drought-tolerant median conversion pilot project, where we're looking at how we can address tree issues, keep them watered, and also upgrade the median so that as we transition from the traditional turf that we're no longer allowed to water to a more drought-tolerant, like we see along Bristol and Grand and some locations. And finally, AMI. This is upgrading the water meters to basically a digital wireless reading of those meters. It automates it. The meters are more precise, so we can minimize any discrepancies that we see in our meters, and that's an ongoing program that we're looking to get off the ground as well. Currently, if we take all the projects that we are working on, as well as the proposed CIP for next year, we're looking at $185 million of projects. You can see the breakdown there. About 60% is the street improvements, 16% is split between traffic and utility improvements, and that 11% there for $20 million of city facility improvements. We track all of our projects with the document you see there. I know it looks a little cumbersome, but basically each line item is a separate project, and you can see each phase and our progress through each project. This document's available on our website, so if you're ever interested in specific projects, please go to our website and you can find our project schedule. And finally, as part of the budget outreach and the CIP outreach, we're about halfway through the process. We've done a sunshine ordinance meeting for the budget and CIP back in late March. We're wrapping up 4 community meetings this week with the Comlink on Thursday. We've also, you see the planning commissions on there, but then after today, in June, we'll be basically linked with the budget approval process. So we have in June, both meetings in June, and then finally the start of the fiscal year on July, first business day is July 2nd. And that concludes my presentation. I'll take any
Thank you, Jason.
questions or comments.
Does the commission have any questions of Jason in Public Works? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first I want to compliment you guys on your success on securing $22.9 million in grants. That's great. I mean, that's a large chunk of what you guys are working with, and that means you guys are out there bringing those dollars back to Santa Ana, so thank you for doing that. I was also very happy to see all the protected bike lanes in the CIP, whether it's Bristol, Edinger, Hazard, Santa Ana Boulevard, Willits. It was great. But I was hoping you can explain to me what the Bush Street Bicycle Boulevard was, because it had a short description. I would just, since you're here, I'd like to know a little bit more about that.
Let me, let me find that program. But in general, so this would include, my understanding of the scope is it includes some of the traffic circles that we've seen along a number of intersections along Bush from basically Civic Center up to 17th Street, similar to some of the stuff we've done in downtown and some other locations. The idea is to get the cars to slow down to go around the circles so that it makes it safer for bikes to use those. This would be more of a shared type use of the bike and the vehicle in the same lane,
Kinda like
rather
what we
than
see
a
on
separated
3rd
bike
Street,
lane.
right?
I'm sorry?
Kind of like what we see on 3rd Street where you've
Yes,
got... okay.
correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ken?
Could you give us the summary of the funding sources? How do you fund all this project?
The various funding sources, yes. So we use a combination of, there's not really any general fund in the CIP. We use a combination of various grant sources like CDBGs, Community Development Block Grant Funds, our enterprises, water and sewer capital money. We use area fees, which are traffic impact fees. A&D is fees collected for from developers for parks. We also have gas tax, and then from Measure M, we receive both a formulaic component, which is called Measure M Fair Share, and then also we pursue grants, which is the Measure M competitive component, and we're very successful there as well. And then under the grant components, we talked about the active transportation program. We have affordable housing, sustainable communities funds, funds from cell tower revenue, air quality, a grant for congestion management and air quality. Let's see, we have support of the streetcar project, so there's funds for staff for providing staff support to OCT for the implementation of streetcar. Those are the main areas.
But I thought the cell tower revenue on the various partner of city they use for mainly targeted for use for the part repair and maintenance, continued maintenance. Does that money going for the cell tower revenue going for general fund for the support of the project or no?
That I do not know, but I can have Parks provide a response to that effect. I'm not intimately familiar with how that funding source works.
One last question: what you estimate funding sources from SB bill, Senate Bill 1, SB 1?
How much do we anticipate receiving?
Right.
We receive from last year, which is a partial year, to this year, it was I believe 9.5 million. So that's what we've received, or will receive through next fiscal year.
You're expecting that for next year?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Lynette?
Jason, can you mentioned something towards the end of the presentation about the water meter management and expense for, I think it says something about the meter reads. Is that?
Yes,
are you
it's
talking about implementing some kind of smart technology?
correct. It's called AMI, or Automated Meter Infrastructure, and basically rather than having somebody pull the lid and read manually what the meter is saying, it's actually a fully automated system. It's a new meter, and then it also connects wirelessly so that it all is drawn. It's similar to the smart Edison meters that they have, where they don't have to go physically and read it.
Right.
But it's also a lot of the meters have reached their or exceeded by a great degree their useful life, and so their accuracy, it can't be really ascertained at this point because they're so potentially out of whack. So by putting in all these new meters over time, we can bring that up and make sure that we're more accurately tracking the use of water in our city.
So what's the estimate on how long it will take to get us fully automated?
We're
the
still
projections?
working through. We don't have a schedule yet,
Okay.
but it is something that is very much at the forefront of what we're doing, and we're looking to implement that as soon as we can.
Okay, great. I just have one comment about that is when we're fully up and running, if we could utilize some of the reporting mechanisms to possibly be more customer friendly as well to help some of the residents. I know my cousin got a huge water bill and as a result found out that she had a leak. So if there's any way we could, use any of the reporting from that smart technology to maybe alert some of our residents that there's a potential, we could save some of them quite a bit of money and be a little bit more proactive there. So just,
Okay.
Just looking forward in the future.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jason.
Patrice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you go back to the slide before your CIP outreach plan slide?
This one?
The orange one. The one that had it was very hard to see, very small. I didn't see it in the binder. That one.
Okay.
Do you have on there the previous year's costs? Because normally I think, I'd like to see previous years versus this year. And this binder, we just saw 2018 and then also the projected costs went up until 2014.
All of the budget data, including the CIP, is on the city's budget website, so you can see all the CIPs going back. This schedule is to track all of the active projects that are being implemented by Public Works at one time. So you'll see it starts with our planning phase, design phase, and goes into construction. So you see where all those projects are. Once they're out of construction, they go into a warranty phase, and then they're removed from the list. So
We don't have that in here, that's why I was asking.
no, I understand.
Okay, and then the other question is, do you happen to know why the zoo lost the accreditation?
I think it had to do with some of the exhibits, certain standards that they're looking to require, but I don't know specifics. We can definitely have Parks provide you with an explanation for that.
And if we do, approve this, a lot of money is going to try to restore that. So I was just curious, what happened.
Sure. So,
Their AZA accreditation.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Jason? I just have one just to build on what Patrice has asked. I think it was 2.3 million was set up for the zoo and the parks. How much of that is being spent on trying to recover the accreditation for the zoo? That'd be an interesting number to see.
Okay. We will respond to you with that.
Thank you. No other questions of Public Works and Jason? Jason, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, have we received any communication on this item?
We have not.
Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this matter at this time? You have 3 minutes. If you please would like to do that, please come up and fill out a card. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And do we have to consider this a motion at this point in time?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay. Do I have a motion for item number 1? Lynette?
I'll move we adopt a resolution finding the fiscal year 2018 to 2019 capital improvement program consistent with the Santa Ana General Plan.
Second from Phil. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0, unanimous vote. Thank you. This is the time and place to consider item number 2, amendment application number 2018-02 to allow a zone change for residential R1 to open space O and general plan amendment number 2018-02 to change the general plan land use designation from low-density residential, LR7, to institutional, INS, for the modern-day high school parking structure expansion project located at 1202 West Edinger Avenue. Okay. Is staff prepared to talk at this point in time?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners. The item before you is a follow-up to a 2015 item that was before this commission and ultimately approved by City Council, and it's the final steps for the modern-day parking structure and school expansion project. The request this evening is by the modern-day Diocese of Orange to approve the zone change and general plan redesignations of 19 parcels that were acquired privately with no city assistance by modern-day in order to facilitate their expansion. Also before you this evening is a request to amend an existing development agreement. All this is part of a 990-space, 3-story parking structure project and a 2-story education building that was approved by the City Council back in 2015. And the items before you at that time was EIR, for Environmental Impact Report, as well as an amendment to the development agreement. We did not take forward the zone changes and general plan amendments because of some concerns with inverse condemnation. We didn't want to affect the parcels affected by downzoning them and affecting the value of them. So we asked Modern Day to come back to the city once they acquired all 19 properties, which they have. And so they're before you this evening for the second part of their project, which is the zoning and general plan cleanups. Here is an aerial map. You can see the existing campus in white, and there in the red, the new site. Those are the 19 parcels, along with some street segments. You've got Berkeley, Occidental, and Baker Street. Parts of those are going to be abandoned to facilitate the project. That abandonment is, or it's called a vacation actually, is going before the City Council for intent to vacate, I believe, next week. And then 30 days later, it'll be before them for a public hearing. So the current campus is about a little over 20 acres. With this additional 4+ acres, it'll be about a 25-acre campus overall. Here's a little bit more of a little zoom in of those 19 parcels. You can see the ones that were purchased by Modern Day without any city assistance. And these are the only parcels that are affected by this zone change and general plan this evening. Nothing else is being touched. And you can see 2 up in the north part of Berkeley, and then there's 8 a little below that on Occidental and Berkeley, and then another 5 on St. Andrew's Place, so 19 total. Currently, they're zoned R1 residential, single family, which is consistent with the houses that were on the properties. And the general plan was low density residential, which is consistent. The zoning and general plan were consistent. So the proposal this evening, is to make the zoning of these 19 properties consistent with the zoning and general plan of the modern day campus. And that is open space is the zoning and institutional is the general plan designation. Again, prior city council actions in 2015, they approved an EIR along with a mitigation monitoring program and a statement of overriding considerations. So they analyzed the parking structure project and the school addition, the building addition, went through all different types of reviews, several public hearings, public notifications, and they approved that document, they certified the document. And then part of that was an amendment to the development agreement, which basically allowed the project to proceed. It also increased the enrollment of the school by a couple hundred kids, and there was a couple other minor changes to the development agreement. And again, all these actions were approved 3 years ago. Here's a master site plan. You can see here, you can see in red there, that's where the parking structure is going to be on those 19 parcels. Again, it's 3 levels, almost 1,000 spaces. So as far as the zoning and general plan analysis here, again, 19 properties. We're looking to change them to open space and institutional, as I mentioned earlier. What the zoning does is it provides a single set of standards. Right now, if you were to keep it as it is and they want to do some development on the property in the future, part of the property is on open space, part of it's zoned R1. It creates a conflict in the zoning standards. So they're going to eventually merge all these properties into one parcel. So what you want to do is have one consistent zoning on a single parcel. So this action here will make it all consistent. All 25 acres will be open space, which allows schools. And then same thing with general plan. The general plan's a long-range vision. We want to change that residential vision over to the institutional, which is consistent with the school campus out there for the site. Again, what we see these as cleanup items. Again, the project was approved by this body and city council. They approved the parking structure, approved the environmental document. All this is we want to wait until they acquired all the parcels, which they've now done, and now we're changing zoning and general plan for those parcels to be consistent with the remaining campus. And then they've had a vision that's been in place that's called the Modern Day 2020, I believe it is, and that was approved back almost 20 years ago. And this is just a continuation of what their vision is for their campus. Again, Modern Day is an urban campus. They have really no place to go but to expand outwards, and so they've privately acquired all the properties without any city assistance at all, and they've moved forward with the project. It's been in plan check. They're hoping to start construction in the next 30 to 45 days, and they just need to get these actions kind of wrap up the remaining items of the project. Okay, the one item here that's also I mentioned earlier, the development agreement, which is a contract between the city and the school for what they can do on the property. What they want to do here before you this evening is a request for the city to participate in the off-site improvements. There's some street abandonments, there's some sewers and storm drains, there's some signalization, some street improvements, all that's part of the project here. When they abandon those 3 streets, they got to put in new cul-de-sacs. So what they'd like to do is request in city participation. It's about almost $1.8 million is what the cap is on it there. And we whittled down to 3 specific items. They want us, the city, to not pay any money, but to provide a signal at Bristol and St. Andrews Place, a traffic signal. They'd like the city to contribute towards the street improvements in St. Andrews Place. They've also liked the city to contribute towards the public alley that's going to be on the east side of the Park Infrastructure campus, which I can go back and show you here. Well, you can't see it; it's a little dark, but it's a public alley between 2. Let me see if I can do another. So right where Baker Street's going to be, nope, it's going to be a little bit east of there. It's hard to tell on this one here. Let me go back to the other map here. This pointer, nope, it doesn't show. But there's a public alley. It's going to be looping in there on the bottom part of the project, connecting Berkeley and Occidental Street. What they had in the previous plan, you can see there to the right, some small little cul-de-sacs. Those cul-de-sacs don't meet today's standards. It's a little dangerous for vehicles, trucks, to back out, including delivery trucks and trash trucks. When they get to the end of the cul-de-sac, they have to back out to get onto, I believe it's Shelton Street. So what we've asked them to do is to either put in the full-size cul-de-sacs or they put in a public alley there connecting Berkeley and Occidental Streets, which will loop right through there. So Modern Day is asking us to contribute to make those improvements, which is about $1.8 million. You probably all know the budget condition is kind of tough right now. We don't have the ability right now to provide some kind of assistance. But we have identified some other ways to address some of these concerns. The city is looking at taking care of the Bristol Street signal through the Bristol Street widening project. We're currently working with OCTA to see if we can contribute that element. That'll save them about $500,000. We took a look at St. Andrews. Part of the requirements is to redo St. Andrews. It's going to be, it was in bad shape and heavily traveled. So we asked them to tear it all out, go down about 8 inches and rebuild the entire street. We took another look at it and found that it really isn't in bad shape. We can get away with a 2-inch redo, which will save them about $450,000. So we can make those kind of contributions there to the project, but we can't go beyond that right now. So our recommendation really is to deny the development agreement change to contribute the $1.8 million. Again, the rest of the language in the DA is going to stay the same. The term limits, the school size, all that will remain in the project. It's just those little elements they're requesting to change here. And then again, our budget concerns really kind of restrict us from providing assistance. Modern Day is a great community asset. We all realize that. They've been a member for over 50 years, I think 57 years in the city, 58 years now. When you open up the USA Today, you read Santa Ana Modern Day if their sports teams do well, so it's kind of free publicity for the city. And we did contribute. We did provide some assistance back in 2000 when they did the previous expansion project, but in today's current conditions, we just don't have the funds to be able to help them out right now. And with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council they approve the zone change, which is an amendment application, approve the general plan amendment, but deny the third amendment to the development agreement. So that concludes my recommendation and my presentation, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Does the commission have any questions of staff? Beatrice?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I was reading the report on page 2-4 under amendment to the development agreement, it says in exchange for the city's vesting approval of the proposed project, the development agreement requires certain improvements in public benefits. What are those?
Those were improvements like street improvements. They provided new fencing along the perimeter of the campus. For instance, on part of the campus was a chain link fence. All that's going to be replaced with a decorative wrought iron block wall. When they do the expansion, they put in some street improvements on their own dime. Those are some of the main improvements of the benefit that we got to that project site. Okay. They moved parking away from the neighborhoods onto this campus, which is kind of the purpose of this project. The 990 space structure is to get parking out of the neighborhoods, out from the north side of Bristol Street, back onto their campus, so they have one single source of parking where they can kind of control it and monitor it and make sure it's safe and secured.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I have is, it says on here that 930K appears to be the maximum contribution that can be made by the city. So I have two questions of that. How was that standard set? And the second question would be, how we provided this type of funding for another private institution?
Okay, so the number was set, was our public works staff, our engineering staff met with their staff, and we went over the budget for the project, and we essentially agreed on what the costs were for the improvements. And for the cost for the street light is it's like $482,000, I believe. It's $500,000. That's where that number came from. The other 450, I'm rounding up. It's 930, but it's another $450,000 is for the St. Andrew's Place redo from the full reconstruction to just a partial reconstruction, which is about $450,000. So the 480 for the street light, 450 for St. Andrews gives you $930,000. So as far as the second question, we've done it in the past. Well, we did it for Mater Dei back in 2000, 2001, when they built, if I can go back here. You can see right there on the bottom, just to the right of the red shade there, that's a 240 space parking lot that was formerly houses at one time. So we did contribute then. We did most of the improvements, not all the improvements, that put in the cul-de-sacs there on those two streets there that you can see, the little small cul-de-sacs, as well as relocated some utilities, signals. We did some work on the main, and it's called Monarch Way, the Edinger Monarch Way entrance. So this last project we did it 15 years ago. So that's all they're asking for essentially, is they like to keep that same terms that's in the development agreement in the past. They just like to include it in the DA again this time.
Right, but the question was how we provided this type of funding assistance for
we did for this project here,
for
yes.
other institutions, like other private schools? Like St. Joseph's, St. Anne's?
No, I don't believe any other projects with Mater Dei that I can think of right now was provided. These are the only ones that I've asked to partner with them, quite honestly.
Thank you.
So, and again, it wasn't financial. We did the work, which is in lieu of paying money.
Thank you.
Ken? Sophia?
What was it that you mentioned in lieu of the alley was another option?
In lieu of putting the alley in, they would have to put in full width cul-de-sacs. So full size. So you can see, I have a look, let's see. So this plan here, you can see those are really small, tight cul-de-sacs, which don't meet our standard today. And that was the original request, is they would like to put those cul-de-sacs on Occidental and Berkeley Street. And due to safety concerns, we said that they wouldn't work. So the option was to buy essentially more properties to make that cul-de-sac bigger.
And they've bought the properties.
They would have to acquire the properties, but they did. And the second option was to provide that little private alley on the property on Mater Dei, which we agreed to do that. So there'll be a private loop that goes through Mater Dei. It'll be a public alley, but they'll maintain it. They'll provide lighting. They'll provide security because it is on their property.
So that's already been approved from prior.
That's correct. That was part of the project in 2015.
So that wouldn't be changed.
It was reviewed in the EIR, approved, certified. Yes, that's correct. That's not going to change.
Okay. I just, alleys bring different things, and I just.
Sure, that's been a concern of ours.
Preferred the other.
Absolutely. And that's why Mater Dei has agreed to monitor it, because although it's a public alley, it is on their property, and they're going to ensure that there's no graffiti, it's lit. Their security, they have security. It drives around in cars, will be out there.
How long is the alley?
250 feet, 260, 120, about 250 feet. Can you pull the, I lost it. Sorry, I'll pull the PowerPoint. Essentially, it's two single-family lots, side by side. It's about 250 feet. If a lot's 50 by 120 is 240 feet.
And how do they foresee monitoring it on the weekends and evenings?
Mater Dei's here. They can kind of give you all the details of that.
Okay.
They have a pretty robust security program on their campus.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand why we're considering the general plan amendment. I understand why we're considering the zoning amendment. Why is the Planning Commission seeing the amendment to the development agreement?
Essentially, our code requires any actions before the City Council gets vetted by the Planning Commission first.
But I mean, to deny this amendment, we're essentially telling the council what to do with funding, which is, I would believe, outside of our purview.
Our code requires it to be reviewed by your purview. You've done it in the past. 3 years ago, you reviewed the development agreement, which didn't have the funding mechanism in it.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, this, I mean, in other words, when we're talking about something built, use, I get it, and it makes total sense to have it here, but when I read this, I was kind of caught off guard with the development agreement and this funding question being brought in.
Right. Typically, our code requires that development agreements come before the Planning Commission for review, so it doesn't necessarily specify whether it's development purposes or funding purposes. It just talks about development agreements having to come before the Planning Commission, and so that's why it is here. Obviously, this particular request and an amendment focuses on something that you don't traditionally see here because it's more focused on funding. But since it is part of a development agreement, that's why it needs to be brought forward.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from Patrice?
Yes, it said that they acquired the 19 properties, and the city, to accommodate this loss, the city recently entitled a residential project on the site on East 4th Street. Can you tell me just a little bit about that? It's on page 2-4, page 4. It says to accommodate this loss of housing, those are the 19 units that they acquired. The city recently entitled a residential project on a site on East 4th Street that was historically used for industrial purposes.
Oh, yeah. So when you rezone properties and regional plan designate them, it affects your RHNA, or Regional Housing Needs Assessment. So we have to provide a certain number of units citywide over a period of 7 years, which is the life of our housing element. So we just had to justify that we're taking away 19 houses off of our housing stock, but we've approved many projects that make up those 19 units. And the one on East 4th Street's Tom's Trucks. You approved it last year, which was 84 single-family houses on a small lot subdivision, small lot. And then there was about 33 townhomes. So that's just saying that we're replacing the units that we're losing for the housing stock. It's not a negative.
Thank you.
No further questions for the commission? Eric?
Thank you. Just one question. So with the change to the open space zoning designation for the 19 parcels, what would be the maximum height of a building under that designation?
In open space, there is no height designation in open space.
So maybe I'm getting this wrong. So what's the 19 parcels? What is the zoning designation that's being changed to?
It's going from R1, which is 27-foot height limit, to open space.
Okay, so what's the max under the open space?
There isn't one for open space.
So conceivably, the parking structure could be 12 stories?
Conceivably. They'd have to go back to our review process once again, and we'd obviously comment on that. We'd probably do another EIR because it's an aesthetic impact to the neighborhood.
So would that also apply to the structure that's being built within the existing campus?
Yes, and that's a two-story structure that was approved by this body.
Okay.
Just replacing a single-story classroom with a two-story, modernizing classroom facilities, essentially adding some classroom space.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Cynthia?
In moving forward then, and I know that the parking structure was formally approved, would we be able today to make a provision for it not to exceed, or does that have to be a whole different process?
Yeah, I did not put the parking structure in your package intentionally because that's been approved under the old entitlements. It's part of the development agreement that was approved back in 2015. So that's why you don't see any really signs of it in your staff report. It's basically a zoning and general plan cleanup in our mind here.
Okay, so only if and when it
that project's been in plan check. I mean, they've got approvals and they're ready to hopefully go in the next 30, 45 days. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Vince, just to piggyback, that would just only mean if Modern Day wanted to change what we've already approved for the size and height of the parking structure.
Right. If they want to come in and change it, we can go back and say it's not consistent with the environmental impact report. Therefore, we need to come back before this body and restudy any potential impacts and recertify the EIR potentially.
But they would have to initiate that.
They would have to initiate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And they're so far down the road, I can't see that happening, quite honestly.
Okay. Would the applicant like to speak on behalf of this item?
Good evening. My name is Patrick Murphy. I'm president of Modern Day High School. I have been involved in this project from the very beginning since 1995. Seen many changes, many adjustments to it. All the school was asking for in the development agreement was to leave the same language from 1995, amended in 1999, and we will be presenting that appeal, that request to City Council on May the 15th. In terms of the parking structure, it's as big as it's going to get. We've been approved for a maximum amount of funding from Farmers and Merchants Bank for a bond. It is not going to be any bigger than that. We've done all the analysis, we've done the EIR, and we have a cap on our student population that is 300 more than it is now. So we will not be building any more parking structures, any more height than we have now. If you have any questions or comments, I would answer them. Our developer is here, our contractor, if you want to ask him questions. Also, our home acquisition team is here, CPSI. They acquired all 19 homes under private acquisition, no city involvement. So if you want to ask them questions, they're here as well.
Cynthia?
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Can you share a little bit about how you're going to monitor the alley?
Yes.
As I had mentioned.
As part of the
evenings.
construction, there will be cameras. Right now on campus, we have 110 cameras. They're all linked. They'll be added to, and that goes back to a main security area. So there'll be cameras, and we also have 24/7, 365 security that includes stationary security at peak times of the day and includes mobile security the rest of the time. So even on weekends, holidays, our security is on the campus, and they have access to the cameras. They have access to devices, et cetera, that they can monitor. So they will be monitoring that. There'll be anti-graffiti attached to the building, et cetera, et cetera. So we're very, very cognizant of that. We agreed in working with Public Works, there were two different options. One was the larger cul-de-sacs. The other was the public alley for the trash trucks for any government vehicles. And the feeling was that the public alley was the better way to go.
And what will be your policy or your turnaround if there is graffiti? How long before it gets repainted?
Well, fortunately, many, many years ago, there was a lot of graffiti around our area. There has been very little, knock on wood. And we would either contact the city immediately, and then sometimes we would mitigate, sometimes they would mitigate, depending on, but we handle it very, very quickly.
Madam Vice Chair, one of the also features we added in the approvals was the block wall separating this site from the houses is going to be landscaped and vined, as well as that east wall of the parking structure will be essentially a green screen as well.
It's fully green screen, and again, we've been in meetings, and our contractor is putting a great deal of effort into making sure that's green screen so it fades into the neighborhood and does not, as a standout, of a big block gray building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Patrick, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
Yes, and it has been distributed to the commission.
Okay. We will now open the public hearing. I have a number of cards in front of us. Please note you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I do have a disclosure that I had communicated with somebody about this item. We didn't ask that before we began. Okay. But I'll just say I communicated with Michael Tardiff on April 21st, and we didn't discuss anything that wasn't in the staff report.
Fair enough. Anybody else? I will also disclose that I had a very brief conversation with Patrick Murphy last Thursday just to discuss the upcoming meeting. Okay. We'll move on to public comments at this point in time. As I said, we have 3 minutes. Please do your best to stay within the 3 minutes. The first person will be Anita Santiago. Anita Santiago? Okay, Santorio. My bad.
Yeah, completely wrong.
That's all right.
Hi, I'm Annette Santoyo, and I live on 1215 West St. Andrews Place. And I do have a question. We have received this map in the mail, and it doesn't reflect what he was showing us. So my question to him would be, what is this big circle around all these properties and businesses that we received in the mail?
That's just a 500-foot radius.
Okay,
it's
because
just a
that's
buffer.
what has all the neighbors concerned. It just didn't really explain why it was such a big circle surrounding all these residential areas and businesses, and another public school area as well. My second question is, in regards to, since they acquired the 19 parcels, they're on the street of Baker, on the side where the soccer field of Modern Day. At night, there is drinking, there is people really loud. I don't see security at night taking those people away. So it has become a public safety hazard because you can't walk there. There's constant, you see drugs, you see cigarettes, you see paraphernalia, and there is graffiti on those green screens that are covering the houses that they did tear down. My other question is, on St. Andrews, we do have speeding from the Modern Day kids. So can, on top of getting a signal light, can we get some speed bumps? Because we do have small children, and these cars are going at least 40 to 50 miles per hour, and sometimes they do not stop at the four-way stop on Baker and St. Andrews. Those are my 3 questions. So hopefully he can hear them out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Angel Bravo. Angel?
Before the next speaker,
Yes.
Chairman, Vince, could you just, she had the question about the radius, and I think the reason that, could you just clarify for the audience that circle was really just the reporting area of who received the notices
Sure.
of this project?
Anybody who lives within a 500-foot radius of a property that's affected by a public hearing, like Modern Day, gets sent a letter that shows the property plus a 500-foot radius around it. So if you live within 500 feet of Modern Day, your property is shaded in there, and you also got that public notice. So it's basically an informational tool for you to know that something is occurring in your area, and if you have any comments, to come to the Planning Commission and provide some feedback.
But
So-
it's not just Modern Day, it's any
project with a
building or
public hearing.
property that's put out for discussion. It's a 500-yard radius on any building, for
project.
any action that's taken by the commission.
Should we translate that?
Thank you.
I'll translate it. Por la pregunta que preguntaron, porque había un círculo en la carta que recibieron sobre la vecindad, es solamente todos los negocios, residencias que son afectados de 500 pies de la escuela de Modern Day, notificaron. Entonces, si viven de 500 pies de la escuela, negocio, casa, residencia, recibieron esa carta. Por eso es que tenía el círculo.
Okay. Angel?
Buenas tardes, yo soy Ángel Bravo y vengo a hablar un poco sobre cómo me fue con el señor Ken, que cuando él se involucró para la compra y venta de mi casa, pudimos dialogar y pudimos salir avante sobre eso. También de la persona Cecilia Messenger, que fue la que me ayudó durante un año a poder comprar mi casa y vender la casa, porque es muy tedioso. Quisiera yo que ustedes se involucraran para poder que los que lleguen a vender sus casas no batallen tanto, porque es muy tedioso de tantos papeles, principalmente que uno ya es mayor y no puede uno calificar para comprar la otra casa. La escuela se involucró mucho conmigo para ayudarme, papeles y papeles para poder saber de dónde salía el dinero para la casa que yo compré. Eso es lo que yo vengo a decir nada más, y que ustedes como concilio se involucren con su pueblo, con su raza, que no la dejen sola, porque es muy duro estar uno solo, principalmente que hablo un poco inglés, pero no lo hablo perfecto para dialogar con ustedes.
No se vaya todo.
No.
What he's here to mention to you as the commission is the fact that he went through this process, year-long process, and it is a tedious one, but that the developer and the personnel behind them helped with the paperwork to make sure that the sale of his home and the purchase of the new one went as smoothly as possible. He also wants to mention that as a commission to be involved with situations like these where properties are being sold for even private developments, to you guys be part of the community as well in the decision-making process. and to be part of the.
Make it easy the process for the people, the older people.
¿Alguna otra cosa?
Se involucró el señor Ken, ese fue cuando pudimos dialogar
Okay.
con las otras personas anteriores.
Pero todo salió bien.
Todo salió bien, gracias a Dios, y la escuela también me ayudó a resolver todos los problemas.
So when the developer got involved, it was able to dialogue and make clear the situation and the purchase process and so forth. So he's here on a positive note for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Armando Maldonado?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Armando Maldonado. Soy vecino de la calle Occidental y estoy afectado directamente con el proyecto de Mara Day. Tenemos muchas inquietudes acerca de cómo se va a hacer la construcción y qué tipo de construcción van a edificar y cómo va a afectar a nuestro vecindario, ya sea físicamente o en seguridad. Y económicamente también cómo va a afectar a los vecinos que estamos viviendo ahí. Ahora tenemos muchas inquietudes también porque hablaban acerca de un callejón. Entiendo poco inglés y no lo hablo muy bien, pero trato de hablarlo. Pero escuché que hablaban acerca de un callejón que se quiere construir o en vez del callejón hacer un cul-de-sac. Tenemos la inquietud sobre el callejón, qué tipo de seguridad vamos a tener en ese callejón. Los callejones prácticamente son nidos para, pues no sé, tirar basura, llegar indigentes, inseguros, en pocas palabras. Entonces, queremos saber si se puede evitar ese callejón y hacer mejor el cul-de-sac. O también queremos saber cómo es que va a afectar el tráfico en nuestra área. Al hacer un estacionamiento para, creo que cerca de 1,000 automóviles, va a afectar demasiado en esas pequeñas calles, se va a afectar demasiado el tráfico. Hay niños pequeños en las calles, en nuestros vecindarios. Los carros salen, los chamacos son jóvenes, salen en sus carros desesperados, queriendo llegar a casa pronto. Ahora que están el estacionamiento provisional, hay demasiado polvo. Nuestras casas siempre están sucias, nuestros carros siempre están sucios. No podemos tener algo limpio porque no están poniendo manos a la obra en esto. Esto, muchas gracias.
His points were that as a resident that is going to be affected by the construction of the structure, he still will be residing adjacent to the project site. His concerns were more on the construction phasing and how that would take part, what kind of issues would be affected to them during the construction phase, and also an issue on the alley, the private alley, and as he mentioned, usually with alleys it's like a breeding ground for dangerous activity, that sort of thing. And his concern was based on how that developer and also the school will take care of the security during and after the construction process. And he also mentioned that and currently there's an issue with like the dirt that's blowing, and if the developer can kind of take care of that, or the school as a mitigation so it doesn't get all over the place, that sort of thing.
No, it's public comment. Just let it. Okay. Thank you, Armando. Appreciate it. The next first name I can't read, but it's Dobson. Last name Dobson. Yeah, sorry, I just can't. Must be a doctor.
Yeah, my name's Chuck Dobson. I'm about a 30-year plus resident of Wilshire Square. I went to Mater Dei. I also went to Santa Ana College. I'm a long-term resident of Santa Ana. My parents were here in 1947, so I don't think I need to point out the need for parking spaces to you people. It's definitely something that's necessary. And that's why I think this project is worth doing, because I'll just be brief here. I think it's going to help the school, it'll help the students, it'll help the neighborhood, and we'll give them some of that parking on the north side of Edinger for Santa Ana College, whoever wants to use it. I think that's a big benefit to everybody. Now, I'm not a civil engineer, so I can't talk about some of the things the gentleman here is bringing about, street improvements and things like that, but still, when we have a project this big, and I think it benefits this many people, I think it's worthwhile trying to figure out how we can make this thing work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. Louis Uliqueen?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Luis Eubioqui, soy vecino de la calle
Hold on
Occidental.
1 second for Ivan to come up. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Soy vecino de la calle Occidental, más que nada yo estoy en la línea ahí donde se va a hacer la división del proyecto. Mi pregunta es, ¿cuándo se va a iniciar el proyecto? Porque yo estoy viviendo a un lado, en mi casa tengo muchos niños, de verdad me taparon la vista, mis niños no ven si viene carro o no, por cuánto tiempo más voy a tener esa pantalla ahí. Y también, ¿qué es el proyecto? Yo escucho, ya tengo 2 años que me mencionan el proyecto, pero ¿qué voy a tener yo del proyecto? ¿Qué vista? Mi calle me la van a quitar, me van a tumbar los árboles. ¿Por qué no nos dan a saber qué es lo que vamos a recibir? Yo no estoy en contra del proyecto, pero estamos ignorados en sí qué es lo que se va a hacer para nosotros. Porque supuestamente, ¿qué van a poner? Barda, platico de un callejón. ¿Ese callejón qué va a ser? ¿Va a ser seguridad o va a ser para que pase toda la gente, drogadictos y todo eso? Yo tengo pendiente por mi familia. Más que nada quiero decir que la seguridad que tenemos ahí, estamos bien abandonados. Mi familia trabaja de noche, yo no me puedo acostar hasta que ellos llegan a la 1 de la mañana porque están tomando, están drogándose, y la policía ni se aparece por ahí. Yo entro a las 3 de la mañana y tengo que primero asomar la cabeza para ver quién está ahí, porque hay 4 o 5 carros con música, tomando, y ellos gozan de esos privilegios, y yo tengo mucha desconfianza porque tengo niños chiquitos y tengo mi familia. Trabajamos mucho, pero lo que más yo quisiera saber, que nos dieran un poquito de información, cómo es como vamos a quedar en esa división, porque estamos ignorados, porque todos trabajamos en casa por el sacrificio de mantener la casa, de estar con comodidad, porque ahorita pues no sabemos qué venga, lo que tenemos es puro polvo de los parqueaderos, que salen los carros rápido, y de verdad siento que nos está yendo muy mal con el proyecto. Yo no estoy en contra del proyecto, pero sí estamos muy ignorados, al menos yo así lo percibo, ¿verdad? Eso es todo lo que quería decir.
As a resident that is currently on Occidental Street, and he will remain after the project is completed, his concerns were based on not being notified of the entire project. He's not opposing the project, and he wants to make sure that you know that, but he does want to make it shown that he's more concerned of what they're actually going to get as a resident. Is it just going to be a wall, the structure? He's also concerned about the current state, as the other person mentioned, about the dirt and the parking lot and how people drive out without any notice for safety. And then he also mentioned that there is maybe a substandard patrol of the area by police, as there is multiple vehicles with loud music and drinking and drugs, as he's witnessed. And so he's also mentioned the alley and how that can create a difficult situation.
Thank you, Luis. Gabriel Avila.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gabriela Velar, yo también vivo en la Occidental y estoy también en la línea del parqueadero donde van a hacer la construcción. Primeramente queremos seguridad para nosotros, ¿verdad? Para todas las familias. Como estaba diciendo el señor anteriormente, allí en la calle Occidental y la Park se usa para tomar y usar drogas. Entonces mi pregunta es, ¿qué seguridad vamos a tener nosotros ahorita antes de empezar el proyecto?
He is also a neighbor of the Occidental Street, and as the previous person mentioned, that there is issues with people using drugs and loitering, in essence, on the street. What kind of security measures are going to be implemented right now, especially with the construction?
También quería saber lo del proyecto, va a estar la estructura de los parkings de 3 pisos. Quiero saber qué es la distancia de lo que es de mi propiedad a donde va a estar la estructura de 3 pisos, que también va a quedar de mi propiedad a la estructura.
His other concern is how far the parking structure, although it's going to be 3 stories, how far his property will actually be to the structure itself, the distance.
También estábamos mencionando el polvo del parqueadero. Los niños de la escuela de Mare Day, ellos son niños, ellos no saben lo que hacen. Ellos se vienen manejando de un lado hasta el otro. Al llegar al gate, vienen como a 40, 50 millas en la tierra. Toda esa tierra se va para dentro de mi casa. Yo tengo niños chiquitos y todo eso les está haciendo mal.
He also wanted to add on the comment about the dust and how the kids from modern day, as they are kids, they're driving at high speeds, and that creates the dust, and it's going into his home. And he has small kids, so his concern is on that.
También para ver si se pudiera hacer la salida de ahorita cuando tienen su parqueadero profesionalmente, que hagan la salida al lado del west para el lado del field y no salgan para el lado de las calles chiquitas donde hay muchos niños y donde hacen mucho polvo.
And the other thing he would like to mention is also the exit of the parking. Instead of having it exit towards the residential properties, maybe exit towards the west where the field is, because of the kids and the neighbors, for security reasons.
Okay. Gracias.
Thank you, Gabriel. Richard Garcia.
Good evening. Again, I'm Richard Garcia. I ran Memorial Park for 10 years. During those 10 years, I was the president at Memorial. We had a lot of meetings with Modern Day and their staff regarding all these issues that the neighborhood requested. The majority of these issues are the same ones that the neighborhoods are complimenting, or the bad issues. Some of them are we need the traffic implemented to Bristol and to Edinger, not into the neighborhood. So that's going to have to be one of the issues that should be recommended. I'm not even sure if it's there or not. I briefly spoke to Vince, and I believe he said they were going to do an island directing traffic out to Bristol on St. Andrews. So if that's implemented, that's great, but it's not going to impact the neighborhood. Issue 2 is we do have speeding all along on St. Andrews, on Baker, and this is in the mornings, like 7:45. Students need to get to school on time, and then they also are speeding on St. Andrews. Another issue is you got the parents dropping off their kids on Bristol Street, and it's been a continuous issue for the past half a year. So that's between Edinger and St. Andrews. Right in the middle of Bristol. They just pull over and they drop the kids. Another issue is there's no security on the weekends. There's no security in the evenings. And like the majority of these people say, that's true. You get a lot of people out there drinking, doing drugs, doing everything on those issues. So please reconsider all these issues that I just explained to you guys. If anybody have any questions, you're welcome to ask them.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mike Tardiff.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mike Tardiff. I'm a resident and business owner in Santa Ana. I'm also a graduate of Modern Day. Modern Day and Santa Ana have had a unique and special relationship. The school and the city have a long history of working together, and they support each other very well. There may be some issues with the neighborhood, and I understand that, and I share some of the concerns. I'm sure the Mater Dei will work with the residents to get those worked out. I would also like to identify myself with the remarks made by Commissioner Becerra. To me, it doesn't really seem appropriate that the Planning Commission would be dealing with funding in any sort of way. To me, it seems like it's more the purview of the City Council. As a resident of Santa Ana, I do support the amendment application as presented, but I do think that the funding should be handled by the City Council rather than by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comment at this time? Hearing none, public comments is closed. I'd like to consider a motion for item number 2. Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions for staff. I'll make a motion, but before I do that, so with the development agreement, we're talking about all these different improvements that are off-site. Were speed bumps ever considered, at least along St. Andrews?
No, I don't believe those are covered or recommended in the EIR at all. Those are pretty thorough traffic analysis conducted there, and speed bumps aren't one. That's really a preference of Public Works, and I didn't see any mitigation measures required speed bumps to out there at all.
Good evening. No, not as part of this project. Speed bumps weren't considered. Speed bumps are normally considered as part of a neighborhood request. We go out, measure the speeds. If they are above 30 to 35 miles an hour, we start looking at whether or not speed bumps would be a mitigation for the area.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Let me while you're there. That section that we're talking about, that street section, is supposed to be resurfaced, is it not?
That's correct.
Yes.
And from the audience, there are a number of people in the community that felt that there would be some means of mitigating speeding if there was something done with regards to speed bumps. So I guess what's the process that moving forward we would have to have in order to discuss and put in place something like that? Not as an action of tonight's, requirements, but as an action of, just taking care of mitigating the speeding.
I would say it could happen after the project is in. After the project is in, if the residents see speeding in, say, adjacent to Mater Dei, they can request speed bumps go in. Our experience is even when there is speeding, we will reach out to the neighborhood and do a poll of the neighborhood, and even if there is speeding and some folks in the neighborhood don't want it, we will still get it still won't pass our petitioning phase. Usually we need 2/3 of the people to say yes, we want the speed humps in, and typically it won't go that far. I guess what I would suggest is if it's the commission's will, if you would like us to look into some kind of traffic calming, we can maybe look into some other type of measures that might work out, that might work within the stretch of St. Andrew, say between Baker and Bristol.
Well, actually, if I can finish where I was at, if we did have the structure before us today as an action item, I'd be making this a condition. But we know it's not. So I think just as a courtesy to us, could you please look into their concerns? And I understand that you guys have a process, but the community took the time to come out tonight, and they're telling you that there's speeding going down that street. I mean, it seems pretty clear. They live there. They know what's going on. I would just ask staff to work with them to try to mitigate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and based on a request, we will go out and and measure the speeds out there.
Okay.
It might, I'm sorry, the reason why I kind of suggested that maybe it happened after the project go in, because then it would be a change of conditions and we could see something separate.
But I think right now what they're seeing is they're speeding there. Right now, there isn't a project built yet. They're seeing it. It's something that they need mitigated, or not mitigated, they just need it addressed. So I would ask you to please work with them, more sooner than later, before any sticks get put in the ground, but just help them mitigate the speed situation on that street. Like I said, I would make it a condition of my motion, again, if we have the structure enforced, but we don't.
Let's continue with some of the questions at this
But
point.
I'd actually like to go ahead and make a motion right now. We can have discussion, but I'd like to make a motion that we adopt an ordinance approving amendment application number 2018-02, adopt a resolution approving general plan amendment number 2018-02, and make no recommendation regarding the third amendment to the development agreement for the council.
Okay, before we
That's
go
my
any
motion.
further, is that something that we can do at this point in time? Because,
Yes, you can make the motion at this point. If there's a second, then.
but is that motion, the fact that we're not going to take any action on denying the third amendment of the development agreement, we're not taking any action on that. Is that going to
Yeah, I
within
think
the legal
with
purview?
Yes, with this type of item, I think the Plan Commission could decide to not take an action essentially on it, and it moves forward to City Council with no recommendation essentially.
Okay.
Just on the one item.
On that particular item.
Correct.
Okay, Eric.
Yeah, so my issues.
Is there a second?
We
I just made a
don't have
motion,
to-
so there's no second?
You just had a motion, but we have
my
some
issue with
conversations.
speed bumps, really, I've been through this process. I wouldn't include it as a condition of approval because the issue tends to be, because I went through the whole process, is people don't want it in front of their homes. And so that's where you can lose the 2/3. That's the problem. It's no one wants it, just like a bus stop. Most people don't want it in front of their homes. I thought for sure we'd have the willingness of the people that I live by on Flower, and they did not want it for that reason.
That's been our experience.
Yeah, it's odd, but because you would think people would want folks to slow down, but once the rubber meets the road, essentially, people sometimes think differently about it. That's really my only comment. I'd be happy to approve to deny the third amendment to the development agreement. I'm willing to do that now because I think it's the right thing to do, and I don't want to pass that off to the city council.
Okay. Lynette, did you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, I did. I was just saying, what Phil was saying about the second, there wasn't anybody giving the seconds. That's all I was making there. But I do have a comment. Do you want me to say it now?
Yep.
When this came before us back in 2015, the community came out, and one of the big concerns at that time was the remnant parcels that still needed to be sold. And I think we gave very, very clear direction to Mater Dei on what the expectation was from this body for fair prices to the residents who still need to sell. And they heard us, and they went back. And it's taken a few years to get there, but I think I'm happy to hear that that the residents that did sell the properties, some of them are happy, as we heard earlier. So I appreciate that. So I'm hoping that my comments today will also be heard by Mater Dei, and those are, again, in response to what the community came out for today, which is the traffic. I would also be concerned during construction of the noise, the hours of operation, how the construction vehicles are coming into the property to build the structure. For the amount of time it's going to take to build a structure, the residents are going to have to live with that process, and it's not going to be an easy one. And I hope that Mater Dei will do everything that they can in their power to make that as easy as it can possibly be on the people around that area, because construction is dealing with Bristol widening right now and near my area, and it's been a beast. So I can totally understand that. As far as security is concerned, again, I hope that you're putting security out there on the weekends and trying to mitigate at least in the area of the properties that you do own, that this business of drugs or trash or vagrancy or trespassing, that is all dealt with. as much as you can on the properties you own from a security standpoint. And then lastly, I think that there's just some real uneasiness about what's going to happen in the process of when that structure gets built. So I would recommend that Mater Dei have a meeting with the residents just to kind of put that plan out there. And you may have already done it, but I don't think that it's going to be a bad thing to do it again with bilingual interpreters and inviting the neighborhood, those people that that are going to be impacted by this project there, and reassuring them that you guys are going to do what you need to do to make it all good. Because at the end of the day, everybody's got to live with each other. We don't want the residents, pissed off at Mater Dei, and we don't want Mater Dei being upset with that the residents are upset. So I'd like to see that happen. But as far as the action today for the actual zone change, we need to do this to move this project forward. The parking structure has already been approved. This is just a formality to get the zone change done in order to move that forward. So I hope everyone understands that, and I would be willing to make a motion on the recommended action.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I want to kind of piggyback onto some of my colleagues' comments. When we approved the structure, I remember in your presentation something about a mitigation monitoring plan, correct? So who at the city would be responsible for enforcing that? Because it sounds like, especially when we're talking about dust and some other items, those are typically things that the applicant would kind of water down the soil so that there wouldn't be so much dust in the air. And there's other mitigations obviously in the plan, but it sounds like maybe they're not being followed through completely. So who would be responsible from the city standpoint to ensure that everybody's following the plan that we've agreed
It's the
to?
planning division.
Planning division?
Yeah, and this is the first we've heard of the dust item. So there is a mitigation that says you have to water it down.
Right.
Prior to wreck. So we'll have a discussion about that afterwards. There's also a mitigation that says you have to notify the neighborhood 15 days prior to construction, put a sign up with a contact person's name. If there's any issues, they call that person who's on the sign, that all the community know within 500 feet. That they're going to start, this is what's going to happen, this is how long it's going to take, here's who you call if there's a problem.
And also in the mitigation plan, are there any mitigations in regards to security? Because that's another concern that's being brought up. And again, since we're really just discussing the zoning and the general plan designation, I'm just hopeful that there is something already in the mitigation monitoring plan that'll hopefully address that.
Yeah, that would be maybe a safety element. That's nothing included in there at all about the mitigation. It's not mitigating an impact at the time, so the project. So it's a post-project impact. So what it would actually be.
Well, because it sounds like right now, as they're clearing the houses to get ready to construct, it sounds like there's crime and there's other things taking place on there, and it is an impact to the community. So I just wanted to see if it was in there, and I'm hopeful that there could be something worked out, as Commissioner Barrino said, that we can see dialogue between the community and Mater Dei to just keep an extra eye out there on those properties, because it sounds like some activities are taking place that shouldn't be.
Absolutely. I'll be meeting with Mater Dei here next day or so to cover a few things to talk about tonight.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cynthia.
Okay, so I was also going to, ask about the dirt. I mean, spraying water on it solves that before kids get to school and before they leave school. I was just at a big soccer tournament, and that's what they were doing, and it just kept cars being covered in dust. So I feel like a lot of the issues here today probably could have been avoided. People could have stayed home for dinner if there was better communication between Mater Dei and its neighbors. So perhaps, sending out notifications in English and Spanish to your neighbors, notifying them of your plan, they might be a little more supportive. I think that's really key. Everybody thinks really great things of Mater Dei. I have my stepdaughter that goes there, and when I do pick up, I do see the kids, unfortunately, racing through that dirt parking lot, and it's a mess. I see it almost every day. And also with the driving, I think it'd be great to be able to look at it and come to some kind of resolution. If it's going to be redone, then if we're going to go the route to speed bumps, I would think that's the time to also do that. Why go back again and disturb the neighborhood again with construction again after redoing the street? And then, I didn't ask and I didn't hear, what is the security going to be for that parking structure once it's built on the weekends? Is it going to be open access? Can anybody still, how is it going to be secured?
Sure, Patrick. Let me speak to a couple of things. One, we did put down dust mitigation on the temporary lot, and we've done it numerous times. On the weekends, we have contacted the PD and explained to them that there are people doing things outside of that. Again, that's public property. That's not our property. They're outside of our property. And the PD has come sometimes, and sometimes they don't. Our security cannot confront a non-modern day student doing that. So anyway, so that's part of that. In terms of the security for the parking structure itself, if there are school events, the parking structure will be open. If there are no school events, the parking structure will be closed. And there's 8-foot gates, fences. They're all going to be automatic gates. We're automizing all of our gates this upcoming summer for security purposes, all controlled by apps that security will have. Security does patrols. Now, again, currently in the temporary lot, if there are things going on the weekends afterwards outside of that property, all our security is allowed to do is to contact the PD. They cannot confront.
So my question was, what's happening inside of the lot, the dirt lot? So what
Currently now with our students, again, as I said,
Yes.
we have mitigated a number of times the dust control. When they're doing construction, there's going to be construction fences all the way around. It'll be secured all the way around. And there'll be no parking. Once, basically in 2 weeks, there'll be no more parking there at all because construction will begin. All parking will be in the school lot and in the lot across the street until the structure is done. So within 2 weeks, the parking disappears out of that temporary lot. And there'll be security fences all the way around. And our contractor's here, again, if you want to ask him questions, he's required to do it. They build, Bowmel Construction builds parking structures all across the western United States. As part of their building permit, they have to water down. They've got to be AQMD, et cetera. So they're very cognizant of that. And we've come in like 3 times and put down a mitigating substance to bring the dust down.
And I think that's important, especially for your neighbors to know that
Absolutely.
in 2 weeks, because they're clueless. So I think that would help them to support your project as well.
And we have had several public meetings in Spanish and in English throughout this process. We will be doing a presentation. Once we get past a certain point of the building permits and we're getting close, we'll be having another required notification to our neighbors. So absolutely we will. And in terms of the impact of our neighbors right next to us, under the work with the city, we are mitigating in terms of green screen. We're putting in a lot of vegetation in order to soften that parking structure so it blends into the neighborhood and is not sticking out. So we're doing everything we possibly can. But in terms of our limits of what we can and can't do with security, our security is not armed. Our security secures our property and deals with our students. And if they see speeding students, and I know students that are serving Saturday detentions because of speeding because their license plate was taken down. But in terms of illegal activity on the weekend with non-modern day students, we report it just like everybody else does, and we ask for help. I believe you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know Acting Planning Manager Fergoso said that the construction was going to start within 30 to 40 days. I'm hearing 2 weeks now, but
I'm sorry, school is out in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So our seniors are gone, and so therefore the students won't be parking there anymore.
Got it.
So
And when is the project completion date?
project completion date is scheduled for August of 2019, so start of school in 2019.
Okay, 'cause I think the community needs to know that. I think one of the concerns was, how long do we have to?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments at this point? I don't want to go through a lot of the things that my colleagues have talked about, but I do think that communication is probably the key in this whole situation. And the better we are in communicating all the different aspects of what's being done on a daily, monthly, and weekly basis is obviously going to be a help. We have a motion on the table. As far as I'm concerned, I would support what is being proposed at this point in time by staff. But we have a motion on the table. Would the secretary please read that motion?
The The motion on the table is to approve staff's recommendation with the condition that that the Planning Commission makes no recommendation on item number 1.
No.
To deny?
No. I made a motion, but I didn't receive a second, and then I'm not sure who
Oh, wait,
made a
that's a
subsequent.
motion. I believe the motion is to adopt the ordinance approving the amended application 2018-02, to adopt the resolution approving the general plan amendment of 2018-02, and to take no action on the third amendment to develop an agreement of 1999-01.
That was my preference. But I did not receive a second unless that changes.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was reading on the actual staff report, the third amendment is number 1, but on this recommendation up here, it's listed as number 3. I apologize for that.
Okay. All right.
So the motion on the table is to approve. If we're looking at this this slide, is to approve number 1, number 2, and take no action on number 3. Correct?
That was my motion.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second to that motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
In my opinion, the responsibility of the Planning Commission is the land use. And the development agreement was made between the school and the city council way back 2015 or whatever that would be. I think not our duty or responsibility to involve any budget matter with the city, far my concern, because most of primary responsibility for the Planning Commission is the land use. So I would support Commissioner Barrera motion that I think we should allow the development agreement to not involve in that and let the city council and between the city council and the school itself to be negotiated. And in my opinion, I do agree the school need to install a traffic light on St. Andrew and Bristol. I just look at the map of the area, and if any weekend event, will be a lot of traffic coming in and out of that area, and during the school year as well. I do agree with the improvement on the St. Andrew place and all that, but again, that involves the additional budget and funding that the project need, and the school also asking for help from the city as well. But again, under our economic budget condition, we cannot able to do that, and I would support second the motion from Commissioner Barrera.
Okay.
So that's a second?
That's the second, I guess, at this point in time, yes. Any comments from the commission? Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second at this point in time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
So it's 4-3. Madam Secretary, let's take a roll.
Commissioner Becerra?
Yes.
Commissioner Verino?
No.
Commissioner Alderete?
No.
Vice Chair Contreras-Leo?
I'm sorry, before I vote, would we be able to make another motion
Yes, we can make another motion.
after this vote? Or is it now?
We can.
You can make a substitute.
If this motion is not approved, then you can make another motion after this one. If this motion is approved, then that would be the action that is taken by the commission.
Okay, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have 4 noes, 3 yeses. Okay? Would anybody like to make a motion? Lynette?
I'm going to move recommended action. That's deny the third amendment to development agreement number 1999-01 for the Modern Day High School Campus Expansion Project. Adopt an ordinance approving amendment application number 28-02 and adopt a resolution approving general plan amendment number 2018-02.
Second.
Second from Cynthia.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make one comment. I'll go ahead and support this motion because at the end of the day, let's just get this thing to the council. I support the general plan amendment. I support the zone change. I've made my comments already on where we should be on the third amendment to the development agreement.
Okay. Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, 6-1 with Ken Nguyen opposing. Thank you very much. This is the time and place to consider item number 3, conditional use permit number 2016-32 to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premise consumption at El Cajon Grill located at 413 West 17th Street, Units 106 and 107. Sorry. Ivan, give it a couple of minutes. She's okay. Yeah. Sarah, can we make a note at 7:10, Beatrice Mendoza left the meeting? Okay. Ivan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Before you this evening is an application that seems a bit old because of the year. I wanted to let you know, as you read in the report, that it was an application that was brought before you in late 2016. And due to things that were out of the applicant's hands, more along the property owner, was continued to a later date. And so those issues, as I'll go over in the application, have now been dealt with, and the application was now deemed to continue. So as you see, this is the application for El Cortijo Grill, located at 413 West 17th Street, currently occupying Unit 107. And as part of this application is also to expand into the adjacent suite. So as I mentioned before, this is a conditional use permit for an alcohol license for an existing restaurant that is also proposing to expand into the adjacent Unit 106. The application requires your approval for a conditional use permit. This is a site location, as you can see, on 17th Street. It's located towards the end of the second building on the site. It is zone C1, community commercial, and it does have commercial uses and residential properties to the north. This is a more recent photo of the back where the parking lot is located. There is also an entrance on the 17th Street side of the building. So what I've highlighted for you for tonight is to show the existing location and also the proposed location, as the entitlement will encompass both suites. And what I've highlighted here is the proposed location for storage and display of alcohol, which is approximately 36 square feet, which is less than the 5% that is allowed per code. The adjacent unit 106 will be improved through tenant improvement plans that will be brought before staff and approved for compliance with also the building code requirements.
Real quickly, sorry to interrupt, but which way is north on this floor plan?
It's up.
Okay.
So the existing restaurant is located on the corner of the building there, And so it's exactly the same way that it's laid out now. So the proposed expansion to Unit 106 is actually towards the left, where they're showing a number of tables and chairs, seating arrangement. And as I mentioned before, the property actually had to go through some legal processes to vacate a number of illegal dispensaries on the property that were creating a lot of trouble, not only for the residents, but also the business owners on the property there. And so effective this year, the illegal uses were vacated, and so we were instructed to proceed with the application, as the applicant also has a certain time limit with the state ABC license to fully receive their approval with the city. And so the applicant is currently working with staff to make sure that these tenant improvements meet all code requirements. And so we were looking into that. The standards that the Santa Ana Municipal Code will also address any potential negative impacts, uses, or hours of operation that might become a nuisance. And as most of the alcohol licenses, they provide an additional amenity to these restaurants that are trying to just make ends meet and compete with the neighboring restaurants in the area. And so the standards ensure that this facility will remain an eating establishment, and hopefully, as we propose, not become an attractive nuisance. With that, staff recommends that the Commission approve Conditional Use Permit number 2016-32. The applicant is here to answer any questions that I might not be able to, but I am available for any questions you might have. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ivan. Is there any questions of staff at this point from the Commission? Lynette,
Oh,
sorry.
Ivan, I just drove by yesterday, and the taqueria sign that was up before is gone, and now there's some painted signage on the top. So they would have to abide by all of our signage ordinances prior to issuing any of the permits, correct? Or any of the,
right.
The CUP.
The applicant will have to abide by all sign regulations and code requirements in order to be approved any sort of signage on the property. I did take a look and see, and there is a code enforcement case that's going to be looked into for unpermitted signage.
Okay.
So I will be working with the applicant
And they
on that.
wouldn't get and then they wouldn't get the CUP until all that's all cleared up anyways. If there's an open case.
Usually what ends up happening, I believe, is all the ducks have to be in a row.
Okay.
If I
But
can
we
say
don't
that,
have to
but-
stipulate anything here in order for that to happen.
That's correct. And the process is we notify ABC when they met other conditions and requirements. So
Okay.
we won't notify ABC if they're okay to be released until they comply with code.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff from the Commission? Hearing none. Would the applicant like to speak at this point in time on the item? Yes. Okay.
I rented this place 2.5 years ago. We barely opened about 7 months ago, and I've been having a hard time with the parking spaces and everything due to the illegal business next to us. So we've been having a hard time. I had 3 businesses when I began. Now I'm down to 1, and I'm barely, suffering from all the economic, loss that I had on this property. So this license, I started about 4.5 years ago, and the limit with ABC is 3 years for a transfer. So they barely gave me 30 more days, or they will just revoke that permit.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant?
What type of food you serve at your restaurant, ma'am?
When I began with Mexican food, and we didn't do any good. I'm Peruvian, so I changed it to Peruvian, and we're doing about $400 a day now.
Do you think with the ABC license will help to improve your business, or why are you seeking for ABC license?
I believe so. It might be, about 20% more. Right now, it's even though we're on an avenue, on 17th Street, the building is not very, well taken care of. The owner of the property, does not want to paint the property or work in the parking spaces. Actually, I had to pay out of my own pocket $20,000 to improve the handicap parking spaces for my business to be open out of my own expenses. So, and I believe that it's going to be a little bit more, about 20% more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
We have not.
Thank you. We will now open this. We will now open for a public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to talk during the public hearing? You have 3 minutes. There were no cards submitted for this item. Hearing none. Richard?
Again, Richard Garcia. I'm here to oppose the request for the license due to the fact that Ms. Yepes has continuous at having banquet halls. She's had banquet halls at 1947 South Main Street, illegal banquet halls, quinceañeras. She's had it at 309 and 311 North Main Street, and then she's also had it at 2525 North Grand Avenue. She goes on an alias, and she continues to do this. So, and she continues serving alcohol at these places. This is at 1947. Okay, we talked to code enforcement, we talked to fire department, and we also talked to the environmental health guards, shutting them down. She continues to open up illegal banquet halls, and she makes between $7,000 to $9,000 each event, and she usually has like 3 or 4 events a month. So this is the reason why we are opposing, and she does have it here on an alias, again in 1947 South Main. And she went under karate studio, and then she went under something else too. So I know this is news to you, Commission, but this is the truth. So this is the reason why we're requesting a denial. Thank you. Any questions?
No.
No questions?
Richard. Thank you, Richard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other public comments at this point in time? Richard, please fill out a card for this item with the secretary. Please fill out a card with the secretary. He did for number 2. Okay. Hearing no further public comments, we will close public comments at this time and bring it back to the commission. Is there a motion to consider item number 3 at this time?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So given what we just heard in testimony, can staff confirm what was presented to us?
This is the first I've heard of that issue up there, so I cannot confirm it at this time. I don't know, Ivan?
The application was solely for this address. No investigation was done as part of the what Richard was mentioning for other locations, and those would be treated, I would say, separately, but at the same time being the same business owner, then we would consider that, but nothing for this application.
I have another question too. So given what Richard presented to us, do you know if the applicant had any intention going forward of applying for an entertainment permit? Because given now you're going to have this additional space, I can see banquets being in there, and also do we still need to, or does an applicant still need to apply for a separate CUP for banquet use for this particular project?
To answer your first question, there was no mention of entertainment permit for this location, and the second question, it would require an approval of a separate CUP for banquet hall use.
Which the applicant has not applied for.
Has not mentioned or intended to basically submit for one of those.
Thank you.
Lynette?
Ivan, if there were any issues with ABC, just based on any other problems with other property addresses, would that have been part of the application for this, from ABC?
Um,
Would she have put that in jeopardy had she had any other issues on other property sites? So basically, my reason I'm asking is because it seems to me like ABC would know if there was something going on somewhere else with her, right? I mean, 'cause
So-
I don't think it's fair to bring that stuff on other properties into this application
The
if
way-
there isn't any proof.
The way it works with the communication between staff, planning staff, and ABC is to a specific address and application. So we'll receive initial contact from ABC, identifying whether the applicant submitted an application for a CUP, if they are required to get approval, zoning clearance from city, those sort of situations. And so the only contact we've had in this location, and as she mentioned, the possible expiration of her application with ABC, those are the things that I've had contact with one of their representatives on, not any additional locations.
Have there been any issues at this particular property of selling liquor, not having a license to do that, or anything else that's come to your attention? And how long has it been open?
Right, so through staff review, we would look at code enforcement violations. There isn't any for this unit. The adjacent unit, which they are expanding into, was one of the dispensaries, and so that's why the space became available for them. But nothing for this specific unit besides the signage, unpermitted signage code violation that is active right now.
Okay.
And then in terms of duration, of how long it's been open, do we?
As she mentioned, the application came in November. They still had to go through.
But they're operating right now.
Yes.
So for how long? Do you know?
A couple of months. They had some tenant improvements that were being submitted, and even though the application, the previous staff report, which I looked through as part of this presentation, in late 2016, they were going through tenant improvements to make sure that the space was adequate for restaurant use, and so those tenant improvements went in a few months. So it's been, I believe, approximately what she mentioned, 7 months, 8 months since they've been opened.
Ken?
She mentioned something about transfer of licenses, or transfer of ABC license or something like that. So this location previously has the ABC license, and she bought that business, and the transfer of ownership have not been completed. Have condition approved by ABC or something. Could you explain that?
She might be able to explain the whole transfer. That's something that she goes through with ABC. Staff would look into the entitlement of the property and identify whether or not she needs a conditional use permit approval to transfer that license into this location. Usually, this is for a type 47, which would allow beer, wine, distilled spirits, and those licenses are pretty rare to transfer. So the expiration of that license is something that she was more concerned with, and being able to bring this item back to Planning Commission for a decision. And
So what you're saying, the expiration of the license, is mean the business now currently have a type 47 liquor license?
No, they don't have approval for alcohol sales at this point, and haven't had that. That was what was brought before the Planning Commission in late 2016. So she is currently operating without any alcohol sales. And so the expiration is for this specific license in this application. She was limited on time.
That's clear. Thank you.
Commissioner, when she was obtaining a license from another location and transferring it from that old location to this site right here, which requires a CUP for a new license at our location, but she's buying it from somebody else, either in the city or some outside the city, because the type 47 is only offered, once or twice a year. They have a lottery for them. So what would happen is Ms. Yepes obtained and bought one from somebody and was looking to transfer it here. So that's a transfer, and ABC has their own separate requirements. It sounds like they give you 3 years to either activate it or you lose it. So that's why she's here mentioning that she has very little time left to do something with it.
The previous establishment did not have a liquor license.
Correct. At this location, there was no liquor license.
The previous establishment at that location.
I thought the ABC license and go under the CUP of the city grant that specific location or landlord of that building structure with that approval. I didn't realize it. I know the liquor license for the alcohol, for like a liquor store type thing, you can transferable from various city to city. I didn't realize that 47 on the restaurant allowed to transfer. I didn't realize that at all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of staff or any other comments on that? Do we have a motion on item number 3? Lynette?
I'll move recommend action, adopt resolution approving conditional use permit number 2016-32.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Phil?
Just one quick comment. These are, when we're granting these, I mean, it leaves our hands. It's difficult to bring back in. And I mean, yes, we don't know for sure what was presented to us is 100% accurate, but at the same time, it does give me enough pause to say, well, do we really want to grant this and let it leave our hands? And in fact, this commission was concerned about this property enough to have them go back and work on other issues on the site. Now, it's unfortunate that the business owner had to endure the cost because the property owner was not exactly willing to help. So I'm in a difficult spot right now because I just don't, you know, this is a privilege and you have to show responsibility to have that privilege. And if any of what Richard said was true, then that doesn't show responsibility to me, and I don't think the folks north of that site would want to have an irresponsible owner that close to homes. So I think at this point I might be a no vote.
Cynthia?
Could we add a condition to approval to have those allegations looked into? And if
we can't, once it's approved, it's gone.
Or what was said, I mean, because just to throw it out there as well is not, it wasn't done in a proper.
Well, I mean, personally, I really wish that Richard had shared that with staff because then that would have given everybody more time to vet it. But I think as far as just simply conditioning it, we can't do that. We can continue it, but then if we do that, we also jeopardize the timeline of the applicant. So again, this is really difficult. We don't have the luxury of time here.
Eric?
Yeah, so, well, you were kind of maybe not reading my mind, but I think that's the delay is what I was thinking because these are serious allegations, the veracity of which we have no idea about. We know what we've been presented, but that could in fact be, there could be an explanation, and I'd hate to deny a person based on evidence that hasn't really been presented to us. So I think Commissioner Becerra's right. It'd be nice to have that ahead of time. But absent that, I feel like the most responsible thing for us to do is to give it a 2-week delay, continuance, and then look into these issues. And if it's real, then we'll know that at that time. Unfortunately, the applicant would potentially be harmed in that regard, but that's as comfortable as I can feel.
You know, to Commissioner Aldereti's comments, would staff be able to communicate to the ABC? Because it sounds like she got a 30-day reprieve. Is there a way to just let ABC know that there was a hiccup at the Planning Commission if we should choose to continue it for 2 weeks and to have that discussed with them?
Do you want to discuss with her, Ivan?
Yeah. Well, no, does she want to?
Yeah.
You want to come up?
As he was mentioning, when I leased the building on 309, it's a church, it's a Tabernacle Christian. I signed a lease for 10 years, paying $11,000 a month. I paid 6 months in advance of the lease. I am a real estate agent. That's where I obtained my money from. And after I got the permit from the health department for 2 commercial kitchens on the first and second floor, because there was no connection other than an elevator and the food cannot be transported that way. And I paid my conditional use permit to the city to obtain a restaurant and a possible banquet hall. The church changed owners and they decided that they want to revoke my lease. So I couldn't win that case because after they have, 40 churches all over the United States, I couldn't afford to do that fight. That's when I met Mr. Garcia, and he proposed that he can help me get any other banquet hall. When I leased the property on 1947, on South Main, which I'm very friends with the owner, Mr. Garcia came to me and asked me to represent me. And I said, it's not up to me, it's up to the owner because I don't have all the funds to obtain this permit. Because it was a problem with the parking, I decided not to continue, but the owner, it's in the process of obtaining a banquet hall. He contacted me several times and he says he wants to partner with me and work on that location if it gets permitted, which it will because it's pretty much, has all the plans and everything on the city. Mr. Garcia clearly said that he was going to come and oppose where I find it personal and not business, because he doesn't live in the neighborhood, he doesn't work in the neighborhood, he has an association where it's 1947 South Main Street. So I have no other business than this restaurant. I don't plan to do a banquet hall in a 1,000 square feet restaurant. There's no way it's gonna fit, 50 people with the tables, with a dance floor, with everything. Reason why I didn't even request an entertainment permit. My hours of operation that I signed today with ABC was until 10 o'clock at night. If I wanted to do anything else, I would do until 1 or 2 in the morning, now, not later. So this is a strictly business as a restaurant, and I don't have no intentions to do a banquet hall in this place.
Did you serve alcohol at the other 2 locations without a CUP or a license?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Lynette?
I just want to go back to the question. Is there a way that the city can intervene with ABC to try to get you a little bit more time if we were to hold this over for 2 more weeks?
Mr. Ivan already talked to Ms. Delia Garcia, which is the person in charge, and she already clearly says it's 30 more days or it was gone. And actually, the date of this meeting was supposed to be the last one, not today. He transferred because he needed a little bit more paperwork. She clearly says until April 30. That was the last day.
Is that true?
So I spoke with the representative, Delia Garcia from ABC, and yes, the information that she's mentioning is correct. Due to some scheduling conflicts, we weren't able to assign or schedule this item for the previous meeting, and so I let her know that it was an item that will be brought before you on this day, and she was flexible enough to make that exception, but she mentioned no other exceptions or extensions would be allowed because of the length that this application's been active in our system.
And is it true a lot of why we've had this much time has had to do with that being caught up in the whole issue with the dispensaries and also the property owner not willing to make improvements?
As far as, the applicant was caught in the middle of something bigger than what she was part of. The illegal dispensaries were something that was a bit of an issue for code enforcement, as those locations would be shut down and automatically opened up the next day. And so after speaking with the code enforcement manager, upon my return to the office, he mentioned that those have officially been closed down, and through the site visits, I'm not sure if you were able to visit the site, there has been some sort of mechanisms to avoid people going into the buildings, and so that was our green light to continue the application before she would lose her application with ABC.
But in all due respect, I believe that action took place about a month ago, if not longer.
The vacation of the illegal uses, that was in...
The putting the bar up, putting the door up and locking out the current occupant.
Yes, I received confirmation that the uses have officially vacated sometime in February, so it would have been a month.
It's been over a month at this point in time.
Right. And so we had to, as part of any other application, schedule the item, and it does take some time to go through the process of writing the staff reports, preparing this item for a public hearing, and so that's where the length of time kind of kicked in, and where the extension that staff required to bring this item before you this evening.
Any other comments?
No.
Eric?
No, I think we have a motion and a second.
Okay. So at this point in time, thank you. We have a motion to approve with a second. Okay, no further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? 6-0 with Patrice absent at this time. Thank you. We will now move on to the work study calendar. The first item of the work study calendar is an update on the planning, on current planning. Ali, it's yours.
Thank you, Chairman McLaughlin. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Tonight is an update on the current planning section in the Planning Division. You have been entertaining various presentations from the sections within the Planning Division, and the final one this evening for you is the current planning section. So we're going to go over who we are, what we do, why we do it, when it happens, what are we working on, and answer some of your questions this evening. Just who we are, we have Scarlett Marr and Jerry Guevara. Ivan has just stepped out. Selena is representing us in New Orleans at the National APA Conference.
Lucky her.
You have myself and Vince. You also have a blurred photo of Ann Nee. As of Thursday, she is no longer working for the city, but she's here in spirit. So what do? We work on development projects and entitlements. Entitlement is just another way of saying a project that gives you the ability to build something. Planning counter management, counter projects like new homes, accessory dwelling units, things that are similar. We provide line support to other city staff like code enforcement, finance, other agencies as we need. We also work on writing and implementing the city's commercial cannabis ordinances. We author ordinance amendments that are known as zoning text amendments. This is when you actually change the code. For example, reducing parking requirements, increasing parking requirements, things like that. And then finally, other efforts like database management, procedure manuals, and other things that keep the wheels turning on a daily basis. So why do we do it? Well, the city adopts and maintains various documents that spell out the community's goals and visions. So we have things like the general plan, which is like the overruling document for the city, not just land use, but other things like health, economic development, conservation, things like that. Then we have the zoning code, which is the actually implementation of the land use and other components of the general plan. Things like uses that are allowed in zones, setbacks, parking, height, all that. We have citywide design guidelines that help us analyze and evaluate projects in context. Things that kind of shade in between the black and whites of the zoning code. And finally, the strategic plan, which basically spells out the city's certain goals and visions over the next 5-10 years, different intervals. So using these documents, we basically evaluate projects as they come in and make decisions if they're ministerial, meaning they don't require action, or recommendations to decision-making bodies, such as the zoning administrator, the Planning Commission, the City Council, and other relevant bodies. Overall, one project at a time, we can improve the city and or maintain character when we like. Although we don't work one project at a time, we work many, many projects at a time. So when does it happen? Well, current planning is exactly what it sounds like. It's the implementation of codes and policies through projects in the now. So this image of people's hands on a plan is from our city's website, and it's meant to basically indicate what we do on a daily basis in many shapes and forms. You have the planning counter, which is day-to-day projects, people coming in to get occupancy for starting a new business, maybe a home permit, all the way up to a new single-family residence, an accessory dwelling unit, major commercial remodels, things that are similar. And then we have project review for more complex projects, known as entitlements. Some efforts are longer term, like project area zone changes, and others are also internal tasks that just take a lot of time. So what are we working on? This is just a brief list. It's not inclusive, but it is major projects that are either requiring a lot of staff attention or that just are particularly complex and merit some attention. 2525 North Main, one of the goals is to get it wrapped up for action in the fall of this year. The 2700 North Main project, winter 2019. When I say winter, I mean early of that year. 3rd and Broadway, later this year. Elan by Wormers this summer. First Point by AMG, probably in another couple of weeks. Tapestry by Hilton. This is a new proposed hotel at Brook Hollow near the Del Taco down there. And the Russell Fisher Commercial Development. This is a new multi-unit commercial project and gas station proposed at the southeast corner of 4th and Tustin. Some other long-term projects we're working on, like Metro East expansion. This is coming to you this summer. There was a little bit of change in processing. Initially, I'd shared it was hopefully this spring, but it is this summer. And then zoning code cleanups. Every now and then we like to look at our zoning code and see what's relevant and what merits some reevaluation and make recommendations to this body for amendments. So this is just a sample, some illustrations of projects that we're working on. First Point by AMG, 594 family-oriented affordable rental apartments will come to you shortly. The project at 2525 North Main Street, which is a market rate rental project that will come to you later this year, and Elan by Wormers, which will come to you this summer, about 600 units of market rate housing by the zoo. All right, what else are we working on? Other public efforts. These are things like the commercial cannabis ordinances. So one of the reasons you haven't really seen me that often this past 18 months is that my life has been consumed by marijuana. I'm not consuming marijuana, my life has been consumed by marijuana, passive voice. So basically, writing every single ordinance relating to that and implementing it has become my life. But in addition to that, we're working on things like reviewing and streamlining the development review process where we can. Again, zoning text amendments, process improvements, and then also other administrative efforts that the public may not realize is happening but are very important to this process. We have a native in-house custom-built database for Santa Ana that we maintain all of our permits and property information. No other city has it. We have code developers and writers in the city that maintain this. It's called SAPIN, Santa Ana Property Information Network. Because it's custom and in-house, we don't have the luxury of an outside firm sending us updates for us to download and implement like an iPhone. When we think that time is due, we sit down and go over how we're going to do it and how are we going to code it and how are we going to implement it. I also have the luxury of that, but work on a great team of people who help it happen. We also do standard comments and corrections letters on a routine basis. The folks that are sitting in the audience here do it on a daily basis. We're looking for ways for Ivan and Scarlett and Jerry and Selena to do this more efficiently. And finally, enhanced interdepartmental coordination. Again, those of us who work the counter often deal with code enforcement, other departments. How do we streamline those efforts and make sure that we're all on the same page so that the customer gets consistent feedback and quality service from the city when they come visit us at the City Hall? So that's basically what we do. We can't do it without a strong team. If Selena were here, I'd be pointing to her as well. Vince also is an amazing person and mentor, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Does the commission have any questions of staff?
You don't have to.
This one.
I want to know why Ali's picture was bigger than mine on that presentation.
At least it wasn't faded, right?
You're the only non-professional headshot, by the way.
Well, it's more of a comment. Just thank you guys. Thank you for all you do. I'm excited the fact that we've got a good young team here that will be around for a while. And as we're doing the general plan update, the zoning code, again, thank you guys.
That includes you, Vince.
Yeah, Vince, that includes, yes. Yeah.
No.
The youngest little guy.
The youngest role model.
Yes.
Thank you, Vince.
He's father planning, as we call him.
Any other?
Just think of it this way: the cannabis stuff is a gateway into other planning things. So you're doing
Prefer
good.
not to use the word gateway when it comes to cannabis. Thank you.
Any other questions of Ali? Ali, thanks. Great job. Appreciate you
Good
doing it.
presentation.
Thanks to
Thank
the
you.
staff for taking the time to take care of us. With that, I'd like to open this up for public comment at this point in time. Is anyone from the public would like to speak? I've received 2 cards at this point in time. I'll start with Kathy Moorhead.
Hi. I'm here to talk about 2525 North Main. My name's Kathy Moorhead. I'm a resident of Park Santiago, and I am not in favor of this project for the main reasons that there's quite a few, but just on the tip of the iceberg, it's the increased traffic, the concern about increased pollution, the impact to the park, the impact of parking in Park Santiago neighborhood. Let's see. The size and scale and nature of the development is very incompatible with the neighborhood of Park Santiago. And then there's also 1,852 units being built very close to this, where the main place, where City Place is and Mother's Market. So if you add another 500 and odd apartments to that, the traffic is going to be colossal. Now, not many people get this view, but from the top of the building where my stockbroker is in the Morgan Stanley on the 10th floor, if you go up there in the morning and look at the line of traffic, or in the evening, there is a traffic jam all the way from MacArthur up to St. Joseph's that is nonstop. So adding that much traffic to what is already really a bad situation, I just don't see how this project can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Dale Helvig?
Good evening again. Nice presentation on the planning, Alan. One thing that kind of stuck out to me, though, was the 2525 Main Street development is trying to get pushed through by fall of 2018. The 2700 North Main project, which was started earlier, is scheduled for sometime in 2019. And it concerns me that this is getting pushed a little bit too fast as far as trying to get this done within a certain timeline. I'm pretty sure the applicant has his agenda that he wants to fulfill and get it done as quickly as possible, as in all developers do, but I just find it interesting that there is such a big difference between the two, and I caution everybody to move slowly. This one is the biggest project that's going on in North Santa Ana by far as a single unit adding almost 500 units to it. Every other project that's up there is a lot smaller in scale, and none of them are next to single-family homes. This one is next to single-family homes. So we really need to do due diligence and make sure we do it right and defeat this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to make a comment at this point in time? If so, please come up, state your name, and please fill out a card at the end of your comments.
Hello, my name is Andrew Ganal, and I'm a multifamily developer who lives in North Tustin, nearby here. Sounds like the planning commission or planning department's doing a great job here, but I just wanted to put a quick bug in your guys' ear to think about how do you incentivize smaller developments in your community? One of the things to notice about all these projects is they are quite large, especially along your new streetcar line. So even though I live here in Southern California, I went to Kansas City, Missouri, which also put in a streetcar. It's been very successful. And we built a 44-unit apartment building on about a quarter acre. I couldn't do that, and it's been very well received. It gets great rents. The neighborhood loves it, in large part because it's really in scale with the neighborhood, opens up right to the streetcar. I would love to be able to do that project in Santa Ana, but I can't because of the high parking requirements in most of or all of the zones that you have here. That was a building that I parked 27 cars for 44 one-bedroom apartments. Got it financed, no problem. Some people don't have cars, they take the bike. So I think especially along that streetcar corridor, you should look at radically reducing your parking requirements. I know that's very controversial, but a lot of cities have done that and done that successfully. And also the impact fees are very low in Kansas City. It's clearly a city that wants to bring people to these neighborhoods, to revitalize them, to help provide tenants to shop at local restaurants and bars and retail and so forth. So I just wanted to close by saying you might want to look at some of these rules and figure out why is it only big developers with big, huge projects are the ones who can get things done in this town, and how can you make things like, I wouldn't necessarily call myself mom and pop, but I like to do projects that are about 50 apartments, 75 apartments, and people seem to really like them in part because they're not these giant, massive projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. Any other public? Come on up, please. Sure. Well, Sarah, make sure you fill those cards.
My name is Kelly Medina, and I live in Park Santiago.
I was not anticipating saying anything today, but I just feel like I need to put my voice in. I don't have memorized statistics or anything, but I know what it's like to live in Park Santiago, and we chose to live there and raise our children. We've been there for 20 years because of the type of neighborhood it is. And I had a chance to move to some place like North Tustin because of the nice suburban area that it is, but it's not the same kind of neighborliness as there is in Park Santiago. That's very special. And having this gigantic thing right on the corner of our nice neighborhood is just so out of character. And I guess you've heard it a million times, but that is such a busy intersection with that strange off-ramp where you can't turn right, but people still do, and the carpooling, and then all those people trying to figure out where they're going. It just backs up forever. And it's not a good spot to add that many more people. In the meantime, having that kind of development doesn't fit with our neighborhood, and that's such a jewel of a place. It's something that makes Santa Ana, that's one thing in Santa Ana that is really, really special. And when people come and see it, they're like, wow, I had no idea. This is such a great neighborhood. This is Santa Ana. It's something that gives a good name to Santa Ana. But putting something like that along with all those other nearby developments is just going to tarnish it. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Kelly. Would anybody else like to make a public comment at this point in time? Come on up.
Oh, never mind, that's somebody else's name.
I sent an email today. I don't know, did it?
How about if you just introduce yourself?
Oh,
and
okay.
then introduce yourself, and then if you would afterwards, just fill out a little card for
Okay.
the secretary. Okay.
Okay, my
You
name
got
is
3 minutes.
Pardon?
You have 3 minutes. That's okay.
My name is Sylvia Livingston, and I am a 30-year resident of Park Santiago, and I agree with everything that has been said. My question is, do you have any prototype? Is there any existing situation that is at all similar to what you're proposing or what is proposed? In other words, the uniqueness of Park Santiago, which is a historic neighborhood with a lot of character, and one of the, I think, the jewels of Santa Ana, but it is adjacent to 2 freeways and a main street and the railroad tracks, all of those things around this little jewel. Is there any place in Orange County that exists that maintains the neighborhood? Do you know of a place, or can the developer show us an example of a project such as proposed and where the neighborhood survives and thrives? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Would you fill out a... Okay. And come on up, please.
My name is Rory Kirk. I also am a resident of Park Santiago, and I wasn't coming to speak. I leave that to Dale, who we've kind of blessed to head up our committee. And my concern tonight was when I heard Ali say that we're looking forward to closing this 2525 in the fall. Well, I have a problem with the developer and his leaflet that he sent out. It is not true at all. There's so many things in there, and I listed them. And I also sent a letter to Vince and the council as to his discrepancies in what he had said. He has not worked with the neighborhood at all. They may have come to the neighborhood, but they're just mulling over what our suggestions are and what our concerns are for the neighborhood. And as these other folks say, it's a neighborhood that is, I don't know of one neighborhood, single family dwelling, where they've put an apartment complex in and it hasn't diminished it. You show me that. Now, this is not LA, and I've talked to the developer. This is not LA, this is Santa Ana. We're a different animal here. And we are a historic district. Our little neighborhood, they made it a historic district because of certain things that were done that didn't keep it historic. And now they're going to plant something here that in 2, 4, 5 years is not going to look old or historic, and it's going to look ugly. That's just my opinion, actually. But that's what happens with new buildings. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Can I amend that real quick? I've noticed that Nordstrom's. What was the Asian restaurant that was a very high-end restaurant?
The steakhouse and the Asian
Steakhouse restaurant. Everything that was high-end is dropping off. We're losing them. We need to start with homes, and just like they did in Floral Park, when the farmers or farmers insurance building left, we had single-family homes that actually are bringing up the area. Homes will bring it up before the businesses can. So it's going to take homes, nice homes, and people in them that will bring the area up, not an apartment building.
Thank you.
My car. Sorry.
Any other comments, public comments that you'd like to make at this point in time? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment session. Ali, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate your work on that. Okay, we'll move on to comments. Staff comments first.
Just one. We found out last Thursday that the new director will be starting on May 1st, so I'm sure he shows up here at our meeting, May 14th, the next meeting, to introduce himself and answer any questions you may have. So, again, Min Tai, sorry, I can't remember the name. Min Tai will start on May 1st. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commission comments. Ken.
I want to compliment Ali and the staff that you guys have. In my opinion, you guys have skeleton crews, but you have done a fantastic job. Well done. We honor, glad to have you guys in our city.
Cynthia. Eric?
No comment.
Lynette?
No comments.
Phil?
Just a couple. This last weekend was the last evening programming over at the Santa Ana Elks Lodge, and while we were there, Bob McCullough, who Jerry knows very well, I don't know what you did, man, but he's like your biggest fan right now, so he asked me to convey to you his appreciation as he announced that to a room of about a couple hundred people. So yeah, he's very happy with what you've been doing to help get the Elks project moving along, so he wanted me to thank you for all that you've been doing. I did not want to leave Vince out of my compliments to staff, so I apologize if I did. Two other things. So when we did this whole thing right now with the work study session on the current planning, it's to give us a chance to, not have an actual action in front of us, but a chance to digest it and look and see what's going on. And I've asked staff to do that on some of these projects that come before us so that the Planning Commission kind of has an idea of what they're seeing, get an idea before they really act on it. And on 2525 North Main, I'd like to ask you guys, because some of these projects, it makes sense to do the work study session relatively close to the action date or the hearing date. I'd ask that you give the commission a little more lead time with a work study session on 2525, because obviously there might be a few people that have concerns about the project. And with that being said, I want to have it in front of us to where, if the project, whether it goes forward or doesn't, whether it's modified or not, just to kind of, I don't think it's going to be a one-shot, easy, let's just have a hearing and be done with it. I think it's going to take a more long, thoughtful dialogue between the community and the city. And so I'm not here to try to delay the processing of it. I would just like to be able to have that dialogue opportunity. So if we could get a work study session in, maybe, I don't know, maybe a month before it comes to us, or some comfortable time frame to give it some time to massage.
Okay, if I may, the most recent timetable, and Ali wasn't aware of this, we just found out last Thursday, is they're probably looking at November, December for action before the Commission and Council.
Okay.
That's your schedule for the EIR schedule. So that's taking the longest time right now, the EIR. The project, they've been through our project review a couple of times. We could probably get it before you in about 45 days.
Okay.
For just a little informal study session, get your feedback on it. And then we still have a couple of months before the EIR gets released. We have a public hearing before this body for EIR, taking in public comments, and then the actual, all the entitlements will probably be, again, probably October, November, or December.
In your opinion, would it maybe make more sense to hold a work study session after the EIR has been released and comments have been collected? Because I think at that point, for us to understand the impacts, I know the communities expressed their concerns, but to allow for that review to take place, that might be a little more helpful for the commission.
The review I envision you happening is more project level review of just taking a look at the project, talking about architecture, parking, circulation, not so much EIR stuff. The EIR is due to get released probably August 1st would be the release date for the actual document out to the public.
What's that, 45 days?
And that'd be August 1st, and it'll be 45 days for comments on it.
Okay.
So that means a public hearing will be held before you and your body probably the end of August, but right in the middle of that time.
Okay.
So talk about the EIR. So we'd like to get the site plan review stuff, the development review stuff's almost done, I guess you can say. So it's really up to you. I don't think that you have to wait for it necessarily, because we can many things talk about the project itself that have nothing to do with the environmental impacts.
And having the work study session does not delay anything. It's just
It won't delay anything at all.
Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, perfect. And then last thing is, we were talking about parking and the comments about, what we could do along the streetcar route. And I know that this body, we've, seen various applications for parking variances, and parking's been a hot issue everywhere. So I know that at one point, staff had mentioned that you guys were looking at adjusting parking standards throughout the city. Is that still ongoing, and do you have a date or at least a time frame to when that might make its way to commission and council?
Sure, that is still ongoing. That's part of the Metro East mixed-use overlay changes. We're doing the EIR right now because the Elks building had a potential cultural impact, so we had to go out and do a cultural assessment, which takes some time with the EIR. That'll probably come through, Ali, probably June, July? Summer. Yeah. He's being vague. Summer. Sometime in summer, we'll come in there, and again, our preliminary analysis was maybe around 1.8 parking per unit-ish, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, just a couple of comments on one item. I think, we're talking about the impact of not just 2525, but we're talking about 2700, and we're also talking about the hotels and possible units that are going to be considered under the mall plan. And I know you brought this up in a comment, and I'm going to want to hold you to it, and that is to, I think we also have to take into consideration, working out a little bit with Orange, the city of Orange, as well as the city of Santa Ana, because not everything that's being done in the north end is the city of Santa Ana. Some of it's the city of Orange. And I think what we need to do is we need to make sure that both municipalities, both planning departments are working together on this to look at what the impacts are going to be, because it's not what we see here on the table for Santa Ana. We don't know what's on the table possibly for Orange at this point in time. And there could be further impacts, because there have been discussions about other development being done, such as in the open space at Town and Country, and that's Orange. So I think we need to take into consideration that fact too. I think this is, 2525 is really just one aspect of a number of different projects, and I think we all need to make sure we're making the right decision as to how the north end is going to be handled as far as we can see. So those are my comments, and I think the other thing is we have a couple of work study programs upcoming with regards to the Brown Act and several other.
Yeah. Yes, we're looking to have two of them, one on the Brown Act and one on the Roberts Rules.
Right.
And so we're trying to find a time where we have a good, not too robust of an agenda. We have some time to spend on it. The next meeting looks to be pretty intense, about 7 or 8 items, but we do have the Brown Act right now tentatively scheduled for that agenda, so yes.
Okay.
And that'll be held by the city attorney's office. It'll give us just an overview. We have some background. We have new commissioners. It's been a while since we've done this, so we'll give you a quick overview on the Brown Act and what it requires.
Perfect. Okay. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second? Second. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.